Lovely speaking to you, Anushka. So you make your debut as a film composer. So what's that been like?
It's been amazing. I've learned so much through this process of scoring Shiraz. As you say, it was my first time scoring a film, but it's not just any film, it's a silent film.
True.
And so taking on scoring a silent film is a whole other level, which to some degree I didn't really think about when I took on the project. I loved it, I was excited to do it. And then as soon as I started, I just got, oh my God, what have I done? You know, it's really big to score a silent film. So in a lot of ways, it's been the most challenging thing I've ever done. But it's been really rewarding. And as I say, I've just learned so much doing it.
And a monument built in the 17th century, movie made in the 20th century, and music restored in the 21st century,
Yes.
and music being composed now. So how did you get the centuries together? Does the music, the score reflect that?
Well, it does. In a way, there was a freedom in that because I knew I could play with various time periods, musically speaking, because I could be faithful to the original time period that the film story is set in. I could also reference the period the film was made in and try and imagine, if you think of the movie halls back then, maybe the kind of music that would have been played next to the film as it was screening would have been very different from, you know, what you would have heard in the 17th century. So I thought that gave me a license to then also bring the music to the modern age to some degree, because what I really wanted was to create a modern film experience for people. You want audiences today to watch this beautiful silent film from the 20s and be able to engage with it as a viewer.
Yeah.
So the music is immersive and kind of has the rich modern sound palette that wouldn't have existed 100 years ago. Certainly, obviously wouldn't have existed 300 or 400 years ago.
And also, your father also composed for films. So did you, refer to his compositions for inspiration? Or?
It feels a bit weirdly obvious now, but like the second I took on this film, I went back and watched the Apu trilogy again because, you know, to me that's a really amazing example of music making for film, and across the board I've seen around the world people always reference that as one of the most successful marriages of music and movie, and I kind of was curious to see if I could kind of figure out what the magic ingredient was in that before I started, and obviously it wasn't that simple, but what I came away from having rewatched the films was just the energy that beautiful music brings to a film, you know, that I didn't need to necessarily simplify the music because it was for a film, that actually you want to still hear really full, really beautiful music.
And it's ironical, your film comes at a time where the Taj Mahal has become the battleground of divisive politics, where it was the symbol of Indian composite culture, is now being seen as a bolt. So what would you want to say about this current controversy around the Monument of Love?
Well, as you can imagine, we didn't book this tour at a time where we would have known this was going to happen, so that wasn't our intention, but I'm really pleased to be here with this film at this time, you know, to be part of a project that does celebrate the Taj Mahal and celebrates multiculturalism and pluralism and celebrates what kind of heights you can achieve when you work together. That's something that means a lot to me, and it's something that in my music I've always sought to do. You know, Land of Gold was my last album, and the entire album was written in response to the ongoing global refugee crisis, and the music tries to implore and speak about the benefits of working across cultures and finding your commonalities rather than your differences. So in context of this, of course, I have the same opinion here as I do anywhere else, so I'm very pleased to be here.
And they always say music breaks boundaries, but somewhere we try to, you know, put boundaries around like one composition and the other. What would you as an artist want to say about the current situation that we're all living in, the world that we are living in?
You know, I think, you know, as a person, you may have found this as well, but I think on a humanistic level, we all kind of have a cyclical nature to our lives. You know, there's a process of like perhaps going through something that's very, very painful that then causes us to re-examine our lives and then change our principles, change our beliefs, live better, you know, and then things get better and we kind of let go and stop doing those things, and then it has to get painful again for us to learn our lessons. And unfortunately, I think that's the way it works for humans. I think that works in a global way as well, unfortunately, that I think there is this weird cycle that we seem to go through where pain and division then causes people to feel the need to heal and reach out their hands to each other and work together, and then things get better and we kind of forget how dangerous it can be when we're not like that, you know. And I think now we've been in a phase, not globally, but of relative global peace for quite a while, and we can see, you know, what's started to happen now. And my only prayer is that it doesn't have to keep getting worse before it gets better, you know, for us to remember it's just the commonality, you know. People, it's so easy to divide, it's so easy to look at people and see differences, but there are similarities as well. And I think for each person to make the choice to see the similarities in the person opposite them rather than the differences, on a person-to-person level, if we can encourage that, educate on that level, work towards that, then I think on bigger levels that difference will be felt as well.
Sure. And also you've always been very vocal about women empowerment, and now the hashtag #MeToo. Do you feel somewhere that this conversation now needs to continue beyond being just an online thing? You spoke about abuse as well.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think in some ways, if I'm not wrong, I was the first person here in India to kind of speak about having been abused and kind of to try and lift the veil on that level of secrecy. I think it's very important to have dialogue. I think from dialogue you can affect change. However, just a dialogue alone doesn't affect change. So absolutely, I do agree. I think for a lot of women personally, it can be quite an amazing process to kind of come out and share. And I wouldn't minimize that in any way, but it has to go beyond that. You know, change has to be talked about on legislative levels. It has to be talked about in political levels. It has to be talked about in terms of representation. You know, women need to be in government in even numbers. Women need to have a say, need to have a voice. Otherwise, change doesn't happen. So social media is great. It's a great start, but by no means is it enough.
True. And also, mom of 2 little boys. So
Yeah.
how's that? Now, there could be quite a handful. Is making music easier handling the boys easier?
Parenting is harder than anything, definitely. I mean, these are human lives, right? So like, in a way, you know, there are elements of parenting that's fun, there are elements that are crazy, there's tiring, there's exciting, all of those things. But fundamentally, you're suddenly responsible for human beings, for little human beings, and that is definitely the most difficult and precious thing in my life.
Have they shown any musical inclination?
Sure, but they're very young. They're 2 and 6, so they show inclination for something different every 5 minutes. so we have to see when they grow up a bit more.
And are you planning to compose? I mean, how about composing music for your husband's film?
He'd have to ask me, but if he did, I might do it. Yeah, he's always said that he wanted to hear me make more music that wasn't just for sitar. I mean, as you know, I write for all instruments, but primarily with sitar involved.
True.
And he said, you know, the sitar is such an iconic sound that it's impossible to hear the sitar and not think of India in some way. So I think with me having done this film, where there's a lot of bits that are without sitar, he was really excited about that because he wants to see where I grow just as a composer as well, not as a sitarist. So it could happen. We'll see.
And lastly, you've collaborated with Sting, you've collaborated with George Harrison. Now, who is on your wish list? Who you would want to collaborate
Well,
with?
it's a bit boring. I feel like I've been saying the same answer for 10 years now, but Björk is always the kind of number one person that I think of because she's an incredible female artist. She's a genius. She always does something different. Anyone she does collaborate with, I feel like she does something very unexpected, very new, and I just love her music, so I'd love to work with her.
And lastly, what's coming next? What's next from you?
Well, I'm continuing to tour my album Land of Gold throughout the year, through next year, hopefully touring Shiraz more in other places, making a new album at some point next year, and continuing to tour classically as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Fun for talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.